Hello, thanks for watching. This is a training video for GetPar MLS users with Matrix MLS. And you're going to talk about building a CMA report using the MLS system. There's a couple of items to cover as far as settings or preferences that you can use when you're doing a CMA. And so one of the first things you'll want to do is we'll go under My Matrix, down to Settings. This will open up your full settings. And there's an option here called CMA Cover Sheet. Okay, at the top of where it says My Information. We'll go ahead and click in there. And we'll get an idea of what's included in our profile or cover sheet now that we may want to update. It's going to have my name, company, and contact information there. I might want to put a phone number. Okay, also want to update a photo, so I'll go ahead and change that photo now. Okay, we'll go ahead and use this photo. You can see it kind of cut off the nose, so you can go back and edit that if you want. Okay, if you need to crop the photo or anything. Okay, so that's my cover sheet. Okay, we're going to run across that when we start our CMA. The first thing we want to do is run a search and select our comps we want to use, and then we'll build a CMA report. So one of the first things you'll want to do is know some details about your subject property that you're building a report. And this could be for a house, multifamily, a land, whatever you're doing. In this example, we're going to be doing a house. So you can go up here to the quick search bar and you can type in your address. And instead of putting in the full street, you can just put it in the part of the street address name followed by an asterisk symbol on your keyboard, which is Shift 8. And that will try to look up and find any records. And it looks like we don't have anything on this street. We can also go into the Realist Tax Search or RPR and look up the property that way. So we can go in here. This is actually searching track records. So the very good chance that we're going to be able to find that address, whether it's been listed before or not, just off the address, owner name. But finding that information is going to help us find the bedroom, bath, square footage, and some details about that subject property if we're not able to find it in the MLS system. If you've been to the property already, maybe you already know these details. It's also important to have a photo, a picture, unless you're going to use one from the previous listing on your CMA. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and start our search. And for this example, we're going to go ahead and just pick sold. It did put a date range in there, 0 to 180 days back. I can change that if I want to 0 to 90. I can also go into this calendar and select the dates off the calendar instead. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in criteria that I want to use to best find my comps. I do know that the subject property I'm working with is a 3-bedroom. And also know it has 2 full baths. And the square footage is 1,582. So I'll go ahead and put a square footage range of 1,400 to 1,600. And I'll change my bedrooms to 3 to 4. Okay, right now off the bottom of the screen I can see I've got 246 matches. I could add a subdivision now. I'll pick El Paso County, also pick a detached. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and narrow it down using the map search, so I can access the map search at the top of this search screen by clicking where it says map search or clicking where it says map. Either one is going to work. This is the 229 properties right now that I'm working with. Now I can just go ahead and go down to the neighborhood or the street where my subject property is. Okay. Let's kind of find it on the map here. So once you're able to find it on the map, you can kind of get an idea. Right here on Shiner is my subject property, where the little hand is in the center of the screen. And I can see just right over here are a couple of properties potentially that I could choose for comps. So I don't necessarily have to draw a shape on the map. I can just visually see where they're at right here, and I can just click on a little thumbnail, and if I want, select that as one of the comps I want to use. We can also go back to the criteria, and if I wanted to go back further, let's say go back 100 days, and if I wanted to change the bedrooms from 2 to 4, I just have to find my position on the map again. I can see I'm still not finding anything there. So I can draw a shape. We've got a radius, rectangle, or polygon, and those three are at the top of your map legend. So if I were to draw the polygon, just a series of clicks to define my shape. I can also do a radius if I want. So now I have a radius about 1.63 miles to cover this map area. So let's go back to the criteria. One additional thing I can do is add pendings or actives if I wanted to. And now when I go to the map, I've got a couple more to pick from. Okay. Something else to consider if I'm finding not enough comps is I can go back to that square footage, and I can do 1400 to 1800. Okay, now I can also change my bedroom. So every search is going to be different. But for the purpose of this training, I'm going to go ahead and just pick some comps here off this map. So I've got here a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right around the same square footage. I'll go ahead and pick that one. Pick on that one. That. So once you've selected your comps, whether from the map or from the search results, then you can go ahead and choose where it says at the bottom of your search results, CMA. And this will begin the process to go through 8 different tabs at the top to build the CMA report. First thing you want to do is assign this CMA to a contact. Whether you have one saved in the system already or going to choose the option to create a new contact, it will need to be saved before you can proceed any further. After you've done that, you can go on to the next page or tab within the CMA report, and you just have to click on the top to the next section. This is where you're going to select the pages you want to use in your report, or elements or pages. The report, if you add all of the pages, could go exceed, maybe 20 pages or more, depending on the number of comps you've selected. To build a basic report, you can just go through each section, opening up the plus sign to look at the subsections to see which pages you want to include. Typically, you may want to include a cover sheet. You can choose to have a plain or a cover sheet with agent photo. If you remember earlier under My Matrix settings in the beginning, I went and updated my photo. So that's why we spent a little bit of time there in that CMA cover sheet taking care of that. Under the subjects, I'll go ahead and pick on both of these. Feel they're important for the type of CMA we're building. Under comparable section, I'll go ahead and pick CMA brief and pricing recommendation. Under the static section, I'm going to opt out of choosing any of the static pages. Encourage you to look at all of the pages when you have a moment, just to see which ones may be beneficial for you or not in the system. And finally, the map. There is a CMA map you can include. So you can see here I've only included 6 pages. And I can now click at the bottom here. It says set as default. I can also change the order. I might want to leave my cover sheet as the first page, but I can definitely move these other ones around. If I wanted to move my recommendation to the end, I've done that. If I want to set as my default for other CMAs I may do in the future, then I want to make sure to click set as default. Additionally, I do have an option here under available pages at the bottom to upload custom pages. If you have a NetOut sheet or additional documents you'd like to include in your CMA, you can certainly add those in here now and make them your default. If you're uploading a custom page for one particular client, you may not want to add that as a default page and just maybe want to use it just a selected page for that one CMA report you're doing. Upload custom pages is right here, and it's going to ask you to browse for the PDF file that you want to use. Okay, after you set up your pages and set your default, you may not need to spend a lot of time here again when you're doing other CMAs because you've already set those pages. The next section is called subject. We have 4 options here on how we're going to plug in that subject property. For this particular example, I chose an address that had not been in the MLS before. So we're going to have to go ahead and do a couple of these options that aren't tied to looking up an MLS number. So here we can search a cross-property listing or a smart tax record. As you may remember from the beginning, I talked about using the tax menu to look in Realist or RPR or the MLS search bar to try to find that property. In this example, I'm going to have to choose the very first one, type in the subject property fields manually. Okay, and this is where I'm going to have to input all the information. Again, it's very helpful when I can just plug in an old listing number from an old closed or expired listing from even several years back to get me that information. It's also helpful to autofill it from the tax records simply by looking up the owner name, parcel ID, or address. It saves you a lot of time. Right now I'm going to have to manually fill in the address. And see, when you don't know a lot of the fields that aren't filled, you kind of have to guess on what the MLS would interpret that to be. So the beds total is 3. It has 2 full baths. The square foot is 1,582. Okay, so that's the subject details. Any of these details that don't have a value, I will not be able to compare that value to my comps. I've got the major ones like square foot, beds, and baths, but because I didn't autofill from a listing, it didn't have all of the actual listing details filled out. So to see that example, we can just plug in a listing number and hit fill. And you can see the difference. It gave me square foot, price per square foot, cooling is filled out, style, subdivision, year built, history of the schools, and list sold price from the previous listing. And actually took the photo and the remarks. So that's what I really would like to get, but you can't always do that. So again, I'll clear the fields, and you can see that You'll have to just type in all the information best you can. So for this, we'll just go ahead and just put in the basics. Okay. I want to add a picture because if I don't have it imported it from a listing, I need to upload one from my phone or from my computer, wherever I have. You don't have to add the picture, but it will make the cover page look a lot better, and it will be used as a thumbnail in some of the pages in the report. Okay, if it's not mapped, then there's a page on the report that will not work right, where it maps the subject property and comps. So I'm going to go ahead and choose locate here and go ahead and locate on the map. Wherever it is here. All right. Once you've had the photo and the subject property information, you can go to the next page, cover. This is the cover page. And again, you can see this is where I added my photo and contact information. You can also edit that right here if you want to update that. You can also add a different cover photo for the subject property. So we move on to the comparables section now. So we've already done the search. You can see that there's already 2 properties here. That may not be enough to use. Maybe you want to add a couple of more, maybe some different statuses. So you can actually add additional listings from the comparable screen here. The options I have are add from listings or add from tax. So if I do add from listings, it's going to make me, looks like it brings up that original search I had before, and I can go to those results and I can pick a couple of more if I wished. And there it says add selected. So now I have 4 sold and 1 under contract that I'm going to be using as my comparables. I also have an opportunity to give them a quick look over right now, just to make sure that there's not any I want to remove or not include. I do have a 4-bedroom one, and I can either remove that now or consider maybe making an adjustment to it in a moment. Okay, moving along to the next section, it's map. If you remember, I had to go and manually update the map pin for my subject property, and here are all the comps right here. So this will be a page. If you remember from my map pages, I have CMA map. So if I clear that out or remove it, you can see the map section is not even, I can't even click on it anymore. So it just takes that out. So I want to add map back in. And there's the map. Okay, the next section is called adjustments. I can look at the adjustments 2 ways. I have a detail mode I can click on, or single line mode. Either way is your preference on how you want to look at the subject property and its comparables. In this one, I'll click through the next button to go through my 5 comparables. You can see each one has a photo, and now I can go ahead and compare my fields. So I have a 3-bedroom subject property and a 4th bedroom as my comp. Here I can simply adjust down to adjust that 4th bedroom to a 3. And I would want to determine a value that I would want to assign. In this example, I'm just going to call it $5,000 adjustment. And adjusted the sales price of this first comp down $5,000 to adjust for that additional bedroom. Okay, not going to make any other adjustments right now. You can also see what happens on my subject property when I don't fill in data for my comparable fields. So my price per square foot, my days on market, and year built simply aren't there. Okay, so if I want to go back to my subject page and just throw in a value. Let's say days on market is 0, price per square foot. We're going to just calculate manually. Let's call it 95. And just so that we have complete data on a report, I went and filled out the rest. So you can see now it looks a lot different now, because this will go on the adjustment page of that report. You can see your build is still missing. If I wanted to complete that, I could go back to subject page and put what I hope is the accurate year built. And now I can do a full comparison of the fields I've entered. I'll go to the next comp. I can see there's nothing really I want to look at for making an adjustment. All right. So if you're done making adjustments, or maybe you don't want to make any, you can go on to one of the final tabs is pricing. Based off the comps I've chosen, it's the system is calculating a recommended price of $127,334. That value is affected by the comps listings I sold as comparables, and the square footage of the subject property and comparables does need to be within a relative similar range. If I had chosen a comparable in here that had maybe 3,000 square feet, well out of the norm of my range here, it's possible this pricing section may not work. It may actually give me an error. But it does work, and it allows me down here in this box to type in a suggested list price. So let's say I want to call it 130. Okay. On the final tab under pricing, I have option to email or view the CMA. There's also a save icon here that I can click to save it. As I've been working on this CMA throughout the training, it has auto saved it, so I do have partial progress saved. I can find the CMA under the My Matrix menu where it says My CMAs. And there will simply be saved under that contact name, and then I can go in and email, edit, or print that out. So let's take a quick look at that CMA that we've made. This is an 8-page report. Again, it was 6 pages I chose, plus with the comps I have, it went to an additional 2 more. So 8-page report. This is the cover page with agent photo, summary of comparable listings. This is my 3-up comparison. And let's look at this subject property. When I have to manually put in information or input it here, the less information I have in these fields, then the less enhanced this report will look. So we can see I did not put schools, school district or subdivision, garage, heating or cooling in my subject property. I probably could have spent a little bit of time filling that out. And once I have, now I can really compare, because right now I'm looking at two comps in Pebble Hills subdivision, but I don't know this one. So just a little tip to make it look full and enriched. There's additional comps. Here's the summary of compared listings and then the pricing recommendation. You could see before the system was telling me to list for about 127. I overrid that with my own recommended price here, and this is the final map page. So that's really the CMA, how it functions in the system. Just a quick review. If I'm logged back in the next day, I can go to My Matrix menu, My CMAs, and I want to locate that CMA that I was working on, just from the contact that it was saved for. I can also email it, and that's going to conclude the training. Thank you for watching.